Hi, everyone. My name is Marcel Ramos. I work here for Levi Waldron. We work a lot with bioinformatics data, and my main tasks are to sort of build data cleaning and processing pipelines. I'm just talking a little bit about myself and what I do. We build data cleaning pipelines, and we also build software infrastructure for organizing all of those different data sets. So what I'm going to go over today is just a few pointers on what to do when you're confronted with a data set and you want to extract some meaningful information out of your data set, and what tools you can use and what can be done. So I'm going to go over some of the stuff that I do here at the school. I provide quantitative assistance to students who are close to finishing up and are at their capstone stage or a master's thesis stage, and sort of go over with them what guide them through their data analysis and sort of help them along the way until to their finished product. So I'm going to talk about what's offered by the Quantitative Assistance mini program. I'll talk about what is not offered as well. The issues that I often encounter with students, some solutions to those issues. I will talk to you guys for any specific needs that you may have, any feedback you'd like to provide. And we're also going to go over the quantitative process. I didn't know how to really term it. It's just the whole thing of going from your raw data to your finished product, which is a capstone essay or a master's thesis, and getting it ready for publication. So please bear with me because some of these slides are cut off, unfortunately. So just a second. Might have to do that for all the slides, but so part of the process is having a process that's reproducible. I'm going to go over some of data cleaning and management tips, some programs that you can use to enhance your workflow and make it reproducible for other researchers and collaborators. I'll also talk about the analysis phase and what you should do for exploratory data analysis, some touch on hypothesis testing and report generation. So unfortunately, these slides were imported from Google Slides, and the conversion wasn't great, so I have to So for Quantitative Systems, what do we offer here at the School of Public Health? We offer one-to-one sessions with other students and go over their objectives for the project. And most of the students are coming to me with their capstones work. They've already collected data. Maybe they have some of it analyzed, and some of them are just stuck in getting started entering their data. And that's the point that you don't want to be in. You want to give yourself enough time to go through the whole thing and make sure that you're dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's. So so I focus on the sessions for their particular analysis, and I try to offer some advice to answering their research questions. I also provide guidance for their end products, meaning their thesis. I help them with the creating tables that are publication ready, and just guiding them on how to do that. I also ensure that their reporting is consistent. So after they do their analyses, are they reporting the results in a consistent manner that would be something that's publishable? What I don't offer is doing the analysis for them. I also don't really check on the assumptions for their tests. I hope that all students know more or less what kind of tests they're going to run and what assumptions they need to meet before running the test. I also don't tell them what the best method is. It's sort of up to the student based on what's in the literature or what data they have on hand to decide what method to use to analyze and answer their research question. I don't do any writing for the students either, so just a note. So what are the issues that I often encounter with students? Usually it's maybe information overload for them at some times, and it's most of the time it's the overuse of spreadsheets. There are a lot of issues with sort of the data cleaning process and keeping your data records tidy and consistent across the whole process or through the whole process. So there's usually an unclear definition of their research question. So what a research question would be is something that they want to answer without even looking at the data, but it depends on how you do your study. But if you're using public data, you might want to have your question first and then look at the data and see whether your data answers the question that you are trying to figure out. So sometimes many students come with an unclear definition of what their project is about. So sometimes the students get lost in the tools and don't really know what tool to use for a specific task. It's good to be familiar with all the different kind of tools that are available and to use some of them that are most convenient at the time. But we also want to maintain reproducibility. Sometimes students don't give themselves enough time to complete the whole project, and they're sort of at the end rushing through getting something on paper. So you want to give yourself enough time to collect the data, clean it, validate it, and do the analysis. So with enough guidance and from professors and from even me to come up with a report that's publishable. One of the major points that we want to focus on is reproducibility, and that is ensuring that the analyses that you run and the data cleaning steps that you run can be done by someone else. So if you have a collaborator that you send all of your scripts and your data to, they can rerun it themselves and see maybe a different. They will see the same results that you got, but maybe they want to run a subgroup analysis or something to that effect. So you want to make sure that everything that you do to the data is documented, and so that you can come back to it later if you need to as well. So there are some examples in literature where using Excel is really bad, and especially in bioinformatics. So there are a bunch of gene names that bioinformaticians use that are munged by Excel spreadsheets. So you want to be careful whenever you're putting stuff in Excel and making sure that auto correct or auto format options are disabled, so that you don't end up with dates instead of gene names, for example. So some of the solutions I mentioned: know your research question, know what effect you're looking for in your data, and whether your data can answer that question that you have. So if you're working with public data, sometimes you might not have the right variable that would answer your research question. So you might have to look for other data sets, or if you're collecting data from the beginning, you want to make sure that your questionnaire or your measure is validated, and validated in the sense that there are other researchers that have used those items to sort of answer that similar research question, or get to that topic that you're trying to get to. So you want to be able to work with various tools, and what I mean is just the programs that help you sort of clean your data set and analyze it. So I guess to start off with, you would want to use the tool that's easiest to work with. I started with SPSS, and I really liked it. I started saving my syntax and writing some recoding statements in SPSS, so it was pretty fun. And then I started working in R and SAS, and today I mainly work in R, or like 99% of the time in R. And so just be familiar with all the tools that are out there, and just be flexible with what you can use to tackle a particular problem. So you also want to keep track of your analyses, and this is what reproducibility is about, saving your scripts, your syntax, or programs, and having everything well documented and with comments, so that when you come back to it in maybe a couple of years or a few years, and you might want to answer a different research question with the data, and you want to clean it again, you already have that script and you know what it's doing exactly. So you also want to prepare early and get help early in case you do need some assistance with the cleaning process or with the report generation process. So just acknowledge that you might need some extra time to work with the data and getting it in a shape where you can run your analyses fairly easily. So let me go. So you also want to ensure that you have an efficient data entry platform, and sometimes that can be EpiInfo. In the past, I've used EpiInfo. It's pretty easy to use. I've tried it recently, and it's also pretty good. If you don't have an easy way to enter data, you could use Excel and try not to mess up. I would use Excel if you have maybe I guess like 40 records or less. But if you have a lot of data, you might want to invest some time in setting up some data entry platform like EpiInfo to use a form for entering all of your data, so that there's less room for error, and you have a pretty good data set coming out of all of the data entry that you've done. Also, you want to emphasize that you should keep a code book for all of your questionnaires, and sort of make sure that your code book matches with the data set that you have as the output. Your variables should be listed in the code book so you know what variable is what, and you make sure you have like short variable names that make sense, and if you are collecting time series data and you have several different time points, you want to make sure that all of your variable names are consistent across all of those time points, so that they're easy to merge. So not all projects are the same, and you might require some interesting methods like hierarchical linear models or some prediction algorithm, some clustering or machine learning algorithms. So those the help can be provided by professors more experienced in the field, and I can surely have a look at it, but just keep that in mind. And that's mostly what I would offer for the quantitative systems part. If you have any questions or concerns up to this point, anyone? Okay. You guys are quiet. So I'm going to talk a bit about the quantitative process, for lack of a better term. And I want to emphasize again reproducibility. It's a major issue in science and the social sciences. And I got this definition from Coursera. It's the idea that data analyses and more generally scientific claims are published with their data, software code, so that others can verify the findings and build upon them. So this is what would make science grow, is producing some results with some code attached to it so that others can check to see if you did dot your I's and cross your T's in the analysis. And it's better for everyone because you can come back to your code and fix it quite easily, and others can sort of correct you on any mistakes that you had made. And we all make mistakes, so there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Sometimes it's hard for, hard for some prestigious researchers to acknowledge that they got something messed up, but it happens all the time, so it's not a big deal. So ensuring reproducibility in all fields, I think, is key. So about data cleaning and management, it's taking your raw data set and converting it into a process data set. And it's often said that this is 80% of the work. So you're going to be spending a lot of time working with software or writing your scripts and programs to sort of take your data and turn it in and put it in a form that's easy for analysis. So you want to make sure that all the operations that you make to the data sets are traceable, and that again, that you have a script that shows all the steps that you did. So you want to check your data for validity, and that just means that making sure that if you're collecting data sets of gender, making sure that that the data, somewhere along the line, the data entry didn't go wrong, and that some people mislabeled it in variables. So you want to write some conditions and make sure that people were encoded in the wrong category. So, and you want to make use of all the tools that you have available. So you can use R, SAS, or SPSS. To start out, we introduce students to SPSS, and then we move on to SAS and R. And there's been a big push in school to sort of increase the R uptake of students, because it's a program that will ensure that you have a job in the near future. So it's good to know R and SAS. So, also make sure that you annotate your code so that you can understand it later when you come back to it if you need to. So I want to show an example script of what it would look like if I can get to it. But first I'll fix this. The online folks might not be able to see it. It's just a script that I have prepared, just as an example. So this is what I use. Most of the time, it's called RStudio, and some of you might be familiar with it. I got the latest version of RStudio, so it looks kind of funky. What this is just a script that I ran recently for one of our professors here. I was helping the professor get some descriptive statistics for some data sets. So basically, I have just, let me increase the font on this so it's a little bit clearer. Okay. If the menus aren't working, but I can open it up in a regular editor. Trying to increase the font here. Okay, well, I tried. So this is just a script that will have like comments for each of the code, all of the code that I wrote here. So when I come back to it, I know exactly what chunk of code is doing what. So it's basically taking a bunch of Excel spreadsheets and reading them in and sort of cleaning it and adding some row names to it, and then running some Fisher tests to all of those data sets. I had looked at the data beforehand and saw that they could all be, you could run a Fisher test for all of it, so, and you should run a Fisher test because some of the cells in those matrices were close to zero, so it was safer bet. So what I did here is just ran it for all the sheets in the workbook and got extracted a few p-values from the data. So, and that was just part of the results for a table that I was working with. So this is the RStudio interface, and it's very convenient because you have code at the top and you have your console at the bottom, and you can access your files all from one window. So it makes it really useful to use. So go back to this. So you also want to be familiar with the principles of tidy data, and you might have heard of this if you are familiar with R and all of the stuff that's happening with the tidyverse and all of the packages that are being produced in R. But tidy data is just sort of basic principles that your data should reflect observations for every row and variables for every column. So you don't have variables that mix two different types of variables into one. So making sure that your data is tidy and that you don't have a mash of variables in one variable. So you may also want to invest in learning some software that can sort of version your analyses, and mainly what we use in the Waldron lab is Git and GitHub. So Git is just a software that will sort of keep track of all the changes that you've made to your analyses, and in case you do have some issue, you can always revert back to what you had previously. So it keeps track of what of any changes that you've made in your software. So GitHub is the online social platform for all of that, and it makes it really easy to collaborate with other people. If you have other collaborators who are also using GitHub, they can easily provide some feedback on the website for your code, and they can even modify it and then send you a request to modify your code. So it's really helpful for collaborating that way. I wanted to show. So I can show you an example of what a GitHub repository looks like, and So this was a neurocystic sarcosis project that I worked with a couple of professors in the school. And what I decided to do is just to keep all my code on GitHub so that they can all see it and reference it whenever they wanted to, so they can keep track of how the project is progressing. So basically, it's just a bunch of files on a server, and it has a nice interface. But you can see that some of this language is for the Git program, and you'd have to sort of learn it a little bit. There are some easy tutorials that you can go over, and if you're going to be doing data analysis and your career is going to be a data scientist, I would suggest that you invest some time on tools like this that make it easier for all collaborators. So what I basically have is just a bunch of scripts here that sort of show the researchers what they can run to replicate all the cleaning that that happened with all the data sets. So this was a time series study where we had like 4 time points, and we're about to get the 5th one and add it to the data. So now that I have these scripts, I can just rerun the scripts with adding the name of the 5th one, and everything should work okay. So I can click into these and look at sort of I show how to download the data sets, and everything can be rerun by someone who wants to run the R code. So that's what it would look like. So once you get past the 80% of the work, you are in the analysis phase, and at this point your data is in good shape, and you have sort of looked at your data a little bit and made sure that all of your variables are consistent with each other, and you're not coding things incorrectly. So at that point, you want to look into the exploratory data analysis phase, and you want to visualize your data, make sure that you don't have too many outliers in your data. You want to plot all of your variables and make sure that the variables that should be correlated with each other are, and your main outcome is in good shape for further analysis. Like maybe you'll be running a regression, and you want to make sure that your outcome variable, say, what's a good one? Like BMI is normally distributed. So you want to do some of that in your exploratory data analysis phase. You want to make sure you find your outliers and decide what to do with them, if you want to remove them or sort of transform your entire variable so that it's in a different scale so you can use it for analysis. So these are some of the things you can do in the exploratory data analysis phase. You just want to get familiar with all the variables in your data set and all of the cases in your data set. And the main tools that you can use are SPSS or R or SAS. They're all pretty good for exploratory data analysis. If you are interested in some methods that are more advanced or that are relatively recent, I would suggest that you pick up R right away, because it's more often than not, R will have a package that works or sort of has code for that method. So and so you're going to be doing some hypothesis testing based on the question that you want to answer. Maybe you want to look at differences between groups. So you want to know what test is the right one for your data, and maybe you want to do a parametric or non-parametric test. So, or you can look at the two and compare, but make sure you're using the appropriate test and know the categories for all of your data, like numeric, nominal, ordinal, continuous, all of those types of data, and know when to use them when you have. So there are some guidelines for the tests that you can run for each of those combinations of data sets or data types. So know which ones you can run and have a look at them and check the assumptions for all of those tests. So and once you're at this phase, you have read the literature already, and if you see that your results don't fall in line with what's been published in literature, you might want to look at something that might have gone wrong in the data cleaning process, or you forgot a transformation somewhere, or there are a whole host of things that can happen. So once you have everything documented, it's not so bad to rerun the whole test or data clean and correct for those errors that you might have made along the way. So. You might also want to look at doing some follow-up analyses like regression diagnostics and making sure that there aren't points that are influencing your regression line too heavily. So you will learn all of this in your study at the school. So don't worry about knowing what this means, but it's good to have some follow-up analyses for your all the tests that you do. So what I like to emphasize about R is that you can generate some reports pretty easily, and these reports can include code and your results all in one document. So it's really easy to share with a collaborator the analysis that you did and the way you interpreted those analyses. So I would recommend looking into R and running a report. It's very satisfying. So you can run all of your analyses at the same time while generating the document. So it can generate like into a PDF, and you can have your detailed report of all the data that you collected, any descriptives and analyses. So running a report like this, there's less room for errors because sometimes you have to create tables and you might have to copy and paste from one place to another, like from a software like SAS or SPSS, copy the results, and there's always some room for error. But if you have a report, it's going to run the analysis that you put into the code, and there's no copying and pasting. So you also want to make sure that your tables are publication ready, and this is, I guess, it's pretty easy to not have publication ready tables because things tend to be disorganized, and so you have to have a specific formatting in case you're publishing to a specific journal. So you want to make sure that your tables look presentable and easy to read. You might want to look at using tools like Google Docs, and maybe a lot of you already use Google Docs, to keep only one copy of a report. So sometimes if you're using Word, it can get really crazy if you have a lot of versions for your capstone. So you can easily lose track of all the versions that you're creating. So I'd suggest to use Google Docs or something that's like GitHub or Git. So Google Docs is pretty easy to use. There are other tools that are more specialized in the formatting. So if you want to create something that's really something that you can, it's hard to format, but once you get that format and the output, it'll be really rewarding because you don't have to mess with the tables and getting it in the right shape so that it fits into your document. So there's a program called LaTeX, and I don't really use it, and I intend to learn it at some point. But it's really good if you want to sort of create a pretty easy workflow for you to generate a report that's of great quality. I would look into that. So I was going to show an example report, but I don't think I have one available. But I can show what the format of a report would look like. If I can sort of go into my pages and see. So this is a package that we worked on in the Waldron lab, and it's an R package, but it provides an easy way to download data sets based on the Human Microbiome Project and other studies. And we sort of took all of that publicly available data and cleaned it up and made it easy for other researchers to use. So this is one of the vignettes in the package, and I'm going to click here on this raw link button, and it'll show you what the structure of a report will look like. You would have this is an RMD file, which is a format that an RStudio can recognize. And what it does, this is what you're going to be using to generate the report if you do decide to use R. So you have a bunch of keywords like title and abstract that will show up on the report pretty as the title and the front matter, we call it, for the RMD file. So it's a vignette showing how to use the package, and it's a report on the package and its usage. So you can see that the formatting is pretty easy. You just use hashtags for titles. You can use numbers for lists, for numbered lists. So if you want to include links, so it's really easy to get started with generating your reports with this RMD format. So it doesn't take too long to get familiar with it, and I would suggest that if you are interested in creating some graphs along with text all in one document, that you look into R Markdown for this. So this provides code chunks along with text, so it's sort of telling you what you can do, what code you need to run to sort of download a data set. So this is the raw text, but once you generate it, it will look a little bit more like this. And if you have any tables, they will also show up. These are just formatted in a nice way, but the code isn't exactly run on GitHub. So, but if you run it locally on your computer, you should be able to get some tables and graphs out of your report. So, making it really easy for you to show your analyses. So that's what I have for tonight. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And that's it. So thank you. So I can make these slides available via a link. I'll make these slides. I'll put them on Dropbox. I'll put the slides on Dropbox so that everyone can have the slides. And I'll add some more information on some resources that you can access to learn R and any of the data scientist toolbox on Coursera and all of the courses available online to get you started, get you up and running quickly. So yeah, thanks. Question? Yeah. My availability? Yeah, I will post a link in the slides. I'll add a slide for more resources, and I'll have my link for a Calendly app that I use to sort so you can set up appointments. So, yeah. But if you want to write it down now, it's calendly.com/mrommel. I usually do like hour sessions or half-hour sessions whenever there's need. Yeah.
What would you say is a typical timeline for like a project?
They vary greatly. I guess what would be more relevant would be for the student and preparing a capstone. I would say that would take like maybe 3 semesters. I guess the first semester would be just doing research on and reviewing literature and seeing what's out there for question that you're trying to answer, and then the other 2 semesters would be either collecting the data or cleaning it. So it really gets a little bit intense. So, because I remember that when I'm actually a student at the school. I was a student at the School of Public Health back when it was at Hunter, and I spent a lot of time trying to pull data from a server, and I was using R, but it was really time consuming. So you want to give yourself more time. So yeah. Hopefully. I'll just.
Hello, everyone. I know you see me like sitting around and stuffing my face full of food. My name is Ronnie Sumler, and I'm actually the writing counselor for the school. I'm scheduled to start at like 7 o'clock. So for the next 10 minutes, you guys can like, stuff yourselves full of food, go to the restroom, introduce yourselves to each other. So yeah, we'll start at 7 o'clock. it's just about time. So I'm not going to start quite yet, but I did want to open the floor for like questions. So a while ago, I attended like the best workshop of my life, and it was a man with like a paisley tie, bright pink, like polka dots, the whole spiel. And he came up and he said that my presentation is going to take like 5 minutes, but I want this to be like the best presentation that you ever heard. So I'm going to get questions from everyone. What are you looking to get out of the presentation today? So it ended up being the best presentation of my life. So I decided just from there that whenever I gave a presentation, I'd always begin with questions from the audience. So when you heard about effective writing, when you heard about this workshop, effective writing, and the tagline, strategies for professional writing and developing career capital in academia, what are some ideas that you came up with? What were, if you had a chance to review our file on Dropbox, maybe you got a chance to look at it before then. If you got a chance, did you get any questions from that? So, anyone? Oh, by the way, can you stand up, give your name, and what you're studying? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll repeat back the question for everyone. So what was your name again? Claudia? Claudia? Yes, so Claudia asked, what are some common errors that you see in writing in academia? What are some specific items that people are looking for? Anyone else? I'm just jotting the questions down and we'll get to the answers. Any other questions? Yes, and stand up, give your name, what you're studying, and then your question. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what was your name again? Ijama? So Ijama asked, in undergrad, she was used to MLA formatting, and she sounds like she was asking for what sort of citation styles that they'll be looking for or will be looking for at this level and in the school. Anyone else? Okay, those are two great questions. During the presentation, I'm also going to be fielding questions from Twitter. So if you don't want to get up and like give your name and like do the whole spiel, you can do @SPH or CUNY SPH and then hashtag professional writing, then have your question. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So let me welcome everyone formally. If you are an incoming student, welcome. If you are a student who's coming back, welcome back. And my name is Ronnie Sumler, as I said before. I am a writing counselor, and I've been here for 2 years, and I've developed with the students a lot of tools and other things that people need to do their writing. So I'll be sharing some of those tools tonight. I'll also be talking about some of the other workshops that we'll be offering during the Common Hour. So Common Hour is at this school is like Wednesdays in the afternoons. I think like from 4 to 6. That's usually Common Hour, and that's when everyone schedules everything, when people have times to do things. So if you have like a project that you want to work on with the other students or with your peers, you all want to like sit down together, a good time to do is Common Hour. If you want to talk to one of the professors or some of the staff, a good time to schedule that is during Common Hour, because that's the hour when we schedule everything. So during that hour usually is when we'll be having our workshops, and I'll have a link to that in the resources. So the agenda for today, introduction, we'll be going over the topic, effective writing in academia, which is broken up into two parts, attributions and credibility, and then the second part, the craftsman mindset and deliberate practice. We'll also be doing a question and answer, and of course I'll be explaining how to get appointments with me and some other services that we offer. And like I said, you can go ahead and post if you have any questions during the presentation that you don't want to get up and ask. Either jot it down and ask it at the end, or you can just tweet us. I have like our Twitter feed on deck for us. So I already kind of went to the introduction, kind of excited. So one of the handouts, you can see that the infographic here is one of your handouts. And this is basically a 3,000-foot view of the publication process when publishing for scientific publications. That's a lot of publications. And I'm just going to do like a quick breakdown. So my colleague, Marcel, the quantitative portion is in the conceptualization part. What I will be helping you with is the bottom, make sure I got my coordinates right, bottom right-hand corner, the compilation and refining, the editing process. And we're also going to be talking about some parts of iterative development, because we'll be talking about collaboration and how to collaborate with your peers and how to interact with peers within your field. It varies from field to field, but I'll be going over like a general like strategic process for how to like target people who you want to work with in your field. So some goals for tonight, understanding attributions and how to use them for social research, understanding higher order concerns, lower order concerns, and where to get feedback, understanding craftsmanship mindset and applying it to academic pursuits, discovering multiple intelligences, engaging skills for building career capital, and developing an exploration plan, which includes finding opportunities that satisfies Cal Newport's 3 criteria for career building. So we'll be going over that last. And we're going to go straight into the topic for today. So the main goal of academia is to contribute to your field of study through collaboration with your peers. A question that we'll be discussing the answers to today is, what do you need to contribute? What do you need for contributing to your field of study? And that really depends upon your field. Public health is a multidisciplinary field, so it ranges. You have environmental health. There's so many different topics, and it really depends how you interact with your fields. Really depends upon that. But like I said, we'll be going over some strategies for how to interact with them. And then also we'll be talking about deliberate practice and getting feedback, which, spoiler alert, most deliberate practices involve writing. So first, attribution and credibility. The way that you interact with your peers in most fields of study is through attributions, that's where the authors are in publications, and through citations. So whenever you cite someone, you're actually remarking upon the ideas that they presented. That's why it's really critical that you always use citations. Ijoma, I'm pronouncing it correct? She asked about MLA formatting. MLA formatting is a type of citation. It's a citation style. The citation style that we use, because it's such a broad field, really varies. But one citation style that you're going to see a lot here at the School of Public Health is AMA. Look it up. It's the citation style that is used in this journal called the American Journal of Public. American Journal of Public Health. There you go. American Journal of Public Health. And they frequently use the AMA style. That's the style that a lot of your professors are going to ask for, because that's a journal that a lot of your professors are publishing to. So with that, whenever you're doing your writing, try to treat your professor as the journal that you're submitting to. So they're going to give you like the formatting that you need to do for your paper, and they're going to give like some specific things that they want to see, so the topic and those sorts of things. So it's good practice to treat them like they are a publication that you're submitting to. So on the, it feels like different when I'm looking from here. But on the other side, there is a infographic, the citation culture, plagiarism, and ethical violations in academia. So I was kind of required to tell everyone what plagiarism is. It's often like a discussion people have at the beginning of the school year, but how this conversation is going to be different from like undergrad or anywhere else talking about plagiarism is I'm going to actually walk through how to avoid plagiarizing. So all the little squares that you see here, idea, support, and transitions, all those are the different sorts of sentences that you're going to be using. So you have your idea. That's the idea that's out of your own noodle, out of your own, cognitive process. And, sorry, this flashed. It distracted me. But anyway, so your ideas. So that's where you discuss, like, the idea that you have. Then for your idea, you're going to need some sort of support. You're going to need some sort of backup from someone within the field. That's when you go out and you grab a fact or a citation, something that you have to cite. So a fact, statistic, anything that you're using to back up your idea, that's a support sentence. It should always follow with a citation. And then you'll have a transitional sentence. And your transitional sentences just glue your idea, support clusters together in your paper. They also help with guiding your reader through the paper. So in the transition, examples of transition is like however, therefore, in conclusion. And those sorts of words, their meanings help you guide your reader through your thought process. And then this slide is going into a little bit more detail about exactly how to interact with people within your field. In general, there are two approaches. There is academic blogging, and then there's social research. So social research is actually how you find people within your field. When your professors give you an assignment and you have to do research on that assignment, usually sometimes they might give you something that you're interested in, like finding your interest within your field. When you start doing research on things within your field, go to the attributions and start to get in contact with the people in the attributions, because those are the people who wrote it. And one natural way to begin a conversation with someone within your field is to talk about what they're writing about and what they're working on. Another good way is going through the citations and seeing who they're citing. Going through the citations might even be better use of your time, because citations are the items that other people have picked out to remark upon. So clearly this person is worth something if everyone's citing them. And then also academic blogging. So academic blogging is one way to build your credibility within your field. Whenever you write a paper, make sure you should be using topical sections anyway. So instead of just having just introduction, have introduction, something specific. Use topical sections, and once you've written your entire paper and you have your citations and you've turned it in and it's edited, and this is really like a after you finish your paper sort of thing you should do, go through each of your citations that you use, and instead of just doing the citation, do a mention. So that's like the social media version of citing someone. You do a mention. So, this person said that, blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to publish your sections, the whole sections that you have, on long-form social media. So long-form social media includes LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a publishing feature now, in addition to having like the how was your day, like updates. They have like a long publishing feature now that you can use to put your papers. That's a good place. A lot of blogging platforms like Blogger, other blogging platforms, those are all long-form social media. Short-form social media are things like Twitter, and Vine is dead now, but at the moment when I was writing this, Vine would have been another example of short-form social media, because it's only a couple seconds of video. So short-form social media is really good for getting the highlights of what everyone's talking about. When you convert your paper to short-form social media, you should be taking out quotes and adding people. So this person said this thing all underneath 120 characters. But these are two approaches to interacting with people within your field. I have another workshop specifically on inbound recruiting that goes into more detail about this. I highly suggest be on the lookout for that if you're interested in advancing your career, which you should be. So next, academic culture and craftsmanship. Quality feedback will make you remarkable in your field. So I picked out the word, I keep saying the word remarkable. When people think of remarkable, they just think of something that's interesting. When I say remarkable, I mean something that is worth remarking on. So the way to become remarkable is to be really strategic about the sorts of questions that you ask. And one way to be strategic about the questions that you ask is sorting them into lower order concerns and higher order concerns. I have a presentation on this as well, and I call it the divide and conquer approach. And this is specifically for editing. So lower order concerns are normally discussed with an editor. So I would be like your personal editor while you're here. I will be helping you with any revisions of drafts that you have. You would send them to me, and we would go over it, and we would discuss like word usage. We would discuss like composition. Those are lower order concerns. But the higher order concerns are supposed to be discussed with like your professor or your collaborating colleagues. Recognize the difference between these can improve your opportunities for networking. So going back to social research, when you contact your peers that you want to build a relationship with, you should be looking at the higher order concerns to discuss with them about. So next slide is specifically defining higher order concerns and lower order concerns. And this infographic you guys don't have, but this is going to be available on the Dropbox. On one side, it specifically lists the different sorts of concerns. So higher order concerns are industry-specific nuances, and that can vary between the industry. Lower order concerns are things like sentence clarity, organization, grammar, and writing style. Those are the things you're going to be seeing me for. Composition can be either a lower order concern or a higher order concern. And the reason why is because composition is how you apply the data that you've worked on with Marcel, or how you apply the language and the voice that we've discussed about using in your paper. That it was within composition, and that can be a higher order concern or a lower order concern. So higher order concerns are associated with like higher orders of thought. So creating, evaluating, and analyzing. You're creating something. You're generating something new. And that's really important for academia because you're here to create new ideas. You're here to test ideas, test hypotheses, and create something new. The lower order concerns, they're still important because you need to understand what you're doing. You need to have the memory to recall and apply some of the skills and things that you've learned while you're here. So they're still important, but they're more things that you'll be discussing with me. Next slide. So next we're going to be talking about the exploration plan and identifying deliberate practices. When most people think about academia, they don't think of craftsmanship. When you think craftsmanship, you think of like a guitarist. You think of like a blacksmith. But in academia, it's more like higher thinking. You're just kind of sitting and theorizing on things. When you get to the PhD level, the P actually stands for philosophy. So you're kind of sitting around and you're thinking about things. But you still need to consider the craftsman mindset while you're here, because that's how you're going to reach your goals. The screenshot that I have here, it is an old iteration that I came up with one of my students who we were talking about like how to progress through, how she's going to progress through her program. And one of the things that I've added since speaking with her is the next steps. And next steps is critical because that's the deliberate practice. What are some things that you're going to do to get to your goal? And then once you've completed your goal, what's the next step? Next slide is talking about skills assessments and personal goals. When I give this exploration plan to a lot of my students, they really have trouble with how to fill this portion out. And one of the ways we have two approaches to help you out with filling out the skills assessment, with filling out the possible career choices. So first we have the multiple intelligences test. So this is going to measure how you use the different intelligences in your life and gauge which ones will have the most impact in the deliberate practices that you make. One limitation of this test is that it focuses, it talks about your personal experiences, and my personal experiences have far different impacts and mean a lot differently to me than asking someone else for their personal experiences. It's a flaw in the test, and one way to measure this flaw is to see like how high or low your scores are collectively. So the areas that you score higher in are the areas that you could start with when thinking about deliberate practices. But if you notice that all your scores are like 3 and below, then you should probably be a little bit more critical about the results that you have, because you probably nothing in the test really spoke to you. So that's why the test, all the scores are low. So this slide is just listing all the different multiple intelligences. The one here that's not included is existential. That's a pretty new one. This is like an updated version. It's not included in the techniques, but existential is just talking about the big questions like why we live, why we die, and we haven't really gotten to that philosophical part of our careers yet. But the other intelligences, spatial, interpersonal, which is self, linguistic, bodily kinetic, which is movement, logical, mathematics, you're really good at math, musical, and naturalist, so you're really in tune with nature. All these different intelligences correspond to the different techniques that we have listed here in our profile. So on one side, I have like examples straight from the catalog. So some examples include compare your written abstract with the authors. When you go and you read a journal, the author has like an abstract, but you should not use that abstract for anything other than to make sure that you are in the right ballpark. Don't use it for data, don't use it for anything. And that's because the abstract is what the author thinks is important. Once you review the journal, you should write your own abstract of what you think is important. And one deliberate technique is comparing yours to the authors. And that's if you have high linguistic or language and high social intelligences. One good shortcut, going back to if you want to contact people within your field, go to the author, check out their abstract, write your own abstract, and then email them and discuss the differences between the two. And that's a really good in for building relationships in the organizations and institutions that you want to get into. Another example, create a chart and color code notes, create a presentation or a podcast, and that's for social, spatial, musical, and movement. Modify your topic to fit your strengths, which includes musical and nature. So musical and nature are really specific intelligences that have a really specific range of topics that you can deal in. If you find that you have high musical strengths, or if you find you have high like strengths in nature, maybe try to change your topic or think about your topic in a different way to fit those intelligences. Or the final one, go on a guided tour, and that's for social and that's for movement. So finally, identifying career choices, criteria for work that builds career capital. These are 3 rules that you should be using when considering possible career choices. If whatever opportunity that you find does not follow these 3 criteria, it's probably going to be a waste of your time. So do not work in places that provide little opportunity for you to be noticed. Do not work in places that are not aligned with your principles, and do not work with people whom you do not like. The last one is really important because a lot of career building activities requires collaboration, and if you don't even like the people, then why? So that's it for my presentation. I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A. I'm also going to, did anyone even post on Twitter? I was talking a lot. Did anyone post a question on Twitter at all? If not, it's okay. You can come back. I'm going to be watching the Twitter for the next week or so. So you can come back and post any questions, any follow-up questions that you have. But do you have any questions for me? Yeah, and give your name and what you're studying. Mm-hmm.
And my question is, so you said that we're going to be doing is there a resource that for us to go to kind of familiarize?
Yeah, sure. I actually have a resource on that. I can send it. I can actually include it in the Dropbox with the presentation and with these electronic infographics. So I'm just going to jot that down. Source for AMA. Anyone else? And give your name and what you're studying. Mm-hmm. So you should be getting a link to the Dropbox once this is over. I'm not sure who's in control of that. I'm gonna look. You're in control. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because you had to sign up for this, so you have everyone's email. So you'll be getting a link to the Dropbox for this presentation, our sales presentation, and all the materials. Any other questions? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I know in the past that it's articles get a lot of
Mm-hmm.
a lot of articles on the site, and that there were programs or websites used to actually collect all the articles or all the everything that you've read,
Mm-hmm.
place them there so you can put in order when necessary and reference abstract. I just not remember.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I know exactly what you're speaking of. So to describe what you're speaking of succinctly, it's a citation management software. And one that I like to use is Zotero because it's free. It's open source. They have like several apps on several web pages, and as you're searching, you can just click on the little Zotero button, and it'll just push whatever you have into like a local drive. So it'll actually save the page locally, even if it's just like a regular page. And I do that for my personal research. I actually have a personal library that I manage with Zotero. And the other one that this university, that's not free, but this university has access to is RefWorks. Yep, RefWorks. So RefWorks is not free, but we have licensing for that, and you can use that as well. Both Zotero and RefWorks links directly to Microsoft Word, and actually Microsoft Word has its own citation manager in it. It's not big, and you have to like put everything into like a prompt to get it done, but it automatically generates like a bibliography or works cited, whatever you have, and then also it automatically generates the end citations, the end text citations. So you just click on a button. You don't have to do like the brackets and whatever. It does it for you. But yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of students or you have to like
Mm-hmm.
full documents and then they'll have that they'll have it there
see, Google Docs is Google Scholar. Oh, okay. I'm not too familiar with Google Scholar.
It actually gives that option. Like Scholar, I know like the Hunter,
Mm-hmm.
they have their own built-in library.
Mm-hmm.
And Scholar, you look up whatever you need and actually has like how it's cited.
I see. Yeah.
There.
Right.
The actual page.
Okay. That's great. I'm not as well versed with Google Scholar. I just, whenever I do my research, I just do Zotero and I just copy and paste it in. But that sounds like a great resource. I'm gonna do some more research on that Google and include it, Google Scholar. Thank you. Any other questions? I know it's like incredibly hot. Like I'm wilting up here. Sorry about the air. Yes, and give your name and what you're studying.
I'm Kathleen,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm studying.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, I'd be a pain in the butt. But
Right.
At the same time, like, what would be, I think, like, the best way to have these?
Right. So this is my final slide, and it has like all of the information on how to contact me. That's a great question. It got me to my next slide finally. So there are two ways you can. There are two services that we provide. We have one-on-one sessions where you just come in for an hour. You have to send me all of your work like ahead of time, like 3 days ahead of time, so I can look at it, review it, and then once we come together, we review it together. That's one way. And then the other way is Tuesday Night Labs. So for Tuesday Night Labs, you just tell me that you're coming. You just bring all your work with you, and we sit down for however many hours you want until the sun goes down, whatever, and we go through your paper. Even if you just want a space to work with, like, let's say you have like a collaborative project with a couple of your peers, and you need a place just to work. Schedule a Tuesday Night Lab, come, everyone sits down, they work, and then you also have access to me during the Tuesday Night Lab. So if you have any questions while you're writing. In general, some things that you can bring to me, I require that you have at least an outline for your work before you come to me, and I would prefer to see at least the first draft. So I would look at your outline, I would look at your first draft. The first thing I really look at is like organization, and then we go from there. I actually have a presentation just on editing and the editing process that I use to go over your papers. If you're interested in that, that's going to be in an Eventbrite soon. But yeah, you can really just come to me for anything regarding writing, because that's literally my job. I give feedback on writing. And the more feedback that you get, the better you get. So.
Do you notice if, like, professors prefer, like, very specific styles of writing?
Yeah.
I feel like that's been my experience. That,
Yeah.
like, the way that you write for one professor does not apply the way that you're writing for another.
Right, and that's very true. Like I said, you should be treating your professor like you're submitting a journal to them. And every journal has different writing styles and different approaches to how they want things written. But the slide that I have and the handout that you have on plagiarism has like the perfect like writing style that you should be using for all of your papers. And I use the same writing style when discussing how to write an attractive paper. I think it's my editing workshop. But you should always have like your topic sentence, and you should always have like your supportive sentence and your transition. And it's just a rhythmic thing that makes your papers more attractive to read. So regardless of whatever your professor prefers when you're writing, I think the approach that I gave you is a good approach to all the sorts of technical writing that you should be doing. Any other questions? Yes. Ms. Zora? Ms. Zora. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you have
Yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So everything that I have, you have to sign up for prior. Just let me know that you're coming. But Tuesday night's labs always start at 3 p.m. and they end around 8. So you can come and you can stay the whole time. You can leave. Yeah. And you're going to be, the difference between like a Tuesday night lab and the one-on-one session is that obviously you get more hours, but you might have to share those hours with other students. And I mean, you can use that to your advantage because then you can start collaborating on a project right there. I mean, that's what I'm there for, so yeah. Any other questions? Okay, that's great. So it is 7:30. I knew this wasn't going to take that very long, but additionally, if you have any additional questions, I'm still looking at the Twitter. I can give you is my email on here? Is it? It should be. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not. So I'll put my email on here and update the file. Yes. It's on there? Oh, great. Thanks, past me. Thanks. Yes, my email is available on the handout. You can use that to contact me for any questions that you have. If you want to sign up for an appointment, you must click the links that were in my final page, because that's where I keep track of everything. But if you're trying to get me to look at a paper right away, just send it to me. I take papers at any time, so yeah. But other than that, thank you.